My name is Antonia Packard. J. Arthur Rank was my great-grandfather, but he died before I was born. This year is the 60th anniversary of the charitable foundation he started, so I'm about to embark on a journey to find out more about the man I never actually met, but whose legacy has had such an impact on so many people's lives. There are contradictions for me there. I think the fact that he was a huge public figure and at the same time a private man, the fact that he had deep religious faith but ran a huge enterprise that consisted of Hovis and Xerox, and he owned many cinemas and made huge blockbusters. Those are contradictions that I want to understand. I want to fill in those gaps. I'm on my way to Northumberland to meet the one man who knew J. Arthur the best, his son-in-law and my grandfather, Major Robin Cowen. He always says to me that documentaries and books that have been written about J. Arthur have never actually encapsulated the person that he truly was. So I think in many ways my grandfather really is the one person who knows the private man as opposed to the public figure. Hi, Grandpa.
Hello, darling. How are you?
Oh, I'm very well. How are you?
Well, I'm all right. What are you doing to me?
We're saying hello. Should we walk through, Grandpa? Robin Cowen married into the Rank family, but worked alongside J. Arthur for most of his life, and was very close to him. He was like the son that J. Arthur never had. Before J. Arthur died, he asked Robin Cowen to become the first chair of the Rank Foundation. What kind of person was he?
He was a tremendous man. He was shy, and but he was, when he started talking about something, he talked and knew what he was talking about and why he was talking about it. And I think he was one of the most tremendous people I've ever met in my life.
J.A.R. Goodness. May 1929 to 1931. It's such intimate photos. I'm not sure that people have ever really seen these. What was Heathfield, Grandpa?
First house that they lived in when they got married. He was a great, great man, I thought. Great fun. He was a great sportsman. And he would try and help people, whatever, and look after them.
J. Arthur also left a strong impression on my Uncle Andy, even though he was just a boy when J. Arthur died.
My grandfather was a man of great presence, great gravitas. He was the sort of the taipan of the village.
J. Arthur's physical presence is also something my Uncle Joey remembers clearly.
Always had these amazing suits which had enormous checks, which as a child you would just stack on one's memory right from the beginning.
You know, he was a great family person. He had an enormous sense of family value, family cohesion, and he was, very much the patriarch. He was, a Methodist Don Corleone. He was looking after the family.
He was a big figure, an imposing person, very informal, but one knew that you were going somewhere very special.
I wouldn't say he was a person that people feared, but they were very respectful of him, even in the family. And as a small child, I was very respectful of him too.
He was a remarkably honest man. He had a very great love of his religion. He's discovered that film might possibly be a very good way of trying to teach children about Christ and religion. That is why he got into the film industry. He realized then that a film was one of the best ways of trying to teach people anything about anything.
So, Grandpa, can you tell me a little bit about the portrait of Lord Rank?
I will.
The decision to go into the movie business would inadvertently land J. Arthur with another leading role, as a member of the House of Lords. Did J. Arthur want to be a lord or not?
No, he didn't. He didn't want to be. He was born Arthur Rank, and he wanted to be Arthur Rank. He hated publicity, and he was persuaded to take the title because he was explained to him that it would help to get the British films into America.
By the time he was made a lord, J. Arthur had an amazing track record. The Red Shoes, Henry V and Brief Encounter had already made him and his production company a household name.
J. Arthur Rank is that rare breed of British filmmakers that he was a mogul, you know. At the peak of his powers in the late 40s, he owned 5 film studios, he owned distribution, he owned a newsreel company, he owned animation house, he owned 650 cinemas. So he was sort of backing films, making films and showing films, and nobody else did that at all.
Yet some of the films he produced seem at odds with my image of him as a very religious man.
He did have a sense of humour. Yeah, anybody who put Sid James, Barbara Windsor all in the same frame on film must have a sense of humour. You just couldn't do it otherwise. If I was asked to sort of distill the essence of that, it's probably Seaside Postcards without the bums and tits.
All the films that people watch on TV on a Sunday afternoon, all the Kenneth More and Jack Hawkins and Dirk Bogarde and Diana Dawes films, Donald Sinden films, they're all Rank films. And there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. So, I mean, the legacy really is pretty much British film, is the legacy.
The enormous wealth his film business generated allowed my great-grandfather many luxuries. One of them was his 15,000-acre estate at Sutton Scotney. Today, it's a nursing home. What would this have been like when J. Arthur was living here?
Well, it was pretty exciting, really, because there were huge estate staff. It was thriving, vibrant, a lot of employment, lots of people here, great fun, and an invitation to play tennis or swim in the summer was not to be missed.
I've come back to J. Arthur's old house with Val Powell, a family friend whose father was part of J. Arthur's inner circle. So, does this look the same to you?
Well, it's uncanny, yes.
Can you tell me the kind of people entertained here by J. Arthur?
There would obviously be some people from the film world, American film magnates, people connected with the British film industry, people from the House of Lords, politicians, and they would gather here before dinner and then have a drink and maybe talk business.
But on Sundays, things were very different.
Well, Sundays was a pretty special day for him. He would, it was the Sabbath, and he observed it impeccably. He would take matins in the little tin church, which was at the bottom of the garden. He would nearly always preach. If you were staying, you were bound to come to church.
How did he deal with being a rich man and a staunch Methodist?
Well, I don't think he ever considered that being rich and powerful and wealthy was there was anything unchristian or against his principles in that.
But did he somehow feel that if you are rich, you have much more of a responsibility towards helping other people? Do you think that?
Oh, yes, I think that was the other half, because his objective was, I think, to help other people. He gave a great deal of his wealth away, in particular the voting shares of the Rank organisation, into what is now the basis of the Rank Foundation. But he did like to be well off, and he enjoyed the trappings of wealth, as this house and estate demonstrates.
While my great-grandfather lived in fine style, he didn't forget the people who worked for him. He built these almshouses for them to give them a decent home when they retired.
My husband worked for Lord Rank for years, and I lived over in that house for 25 years in that bungalow, and then I got moved to here. And everything's free. I don't pay for nothing.
And do you think he's left a legacy? I mean, do you think his sort of goodness and his kindness will...
yeah, gosh, yeah. Couldn't be any better, could it?
I've never seen these pictures before, and I was so happy when I found them.
Memories of my great-grandfather were being unearthed in the most unexpected places, even in my own mother's kitchen.
Well, that's Edward VIII. Whether he was king there or not, I don't know. But you see, we never heard about these stories. He never said anything. And although he knew a lot of people.
Wait, hang on. That's J. Arthur with the Queen Mother?
With Queen Mother. And I think she opened a lot of special films for him.
What we've learned about J. Arthur through Daddy or Grandpa is a man who was a really private family man, but actually we forget that he hung out with people like the Queen and the Queen Mother.
Your father used to say, like his grandfather, to whom much is given, much is expected. Or things like when you wake up in the morning, what can you do to make somebody happy? And this is all to do with the Methodist way of being brought up, I believe.
One thing that Grandpa taught me to do was to be positive in life. And it came across all the time from him.
If what had happened wasn't good, whether there weren't any birds to shoot or all the begonias had got frosted, then that was it. On to the next thing, look forward, there are more begonias around the corner. And it's that sort of optimism and forward-looking that I would most closely associate with him.
Brilliant people are very good at talking to the young. They both treated you like grown-ups. We had some incredibly serious conversations, which at the time I thought were rather grown-up. It's been a wonderful lesson to have learnt from Grandpa that actually young people are so special that we can now carry on helping them through the foundation.
The next stop on my journey is Hull, where it all started. All I really know about Hull is that it's the birthplace of both J. Arthur Rank and his father Joseph. I'm hoping to find out more about where the family business started and what legacy lives on in the city today. So I've come to the birthplace of J. Arthur's father, Joseph Rank, which, as it happens, is next to the last windmill left standing in a city where once there were hundreds.
Well, the Rank name has been prominent in Hull over about 4 generations now. Not many people know, either locally or nationally, that Joseph Rank, the father of J. Arthur Rank, during the Second World War, Joseph Rank, through his international connections, particularly with America, was able to secure the flow of grain. And by so doing, he actually averted a major crisis, possibly even a famine, in this country. I think it's true of many powerful people of that time who, as well as running their mighty industries, actually did a lot of good work. But the people themselves tended to be very low profile and didn't make a big song and dance about it. So they achieved their good works, but quietly.
Just along the road is the house where J. Arthur was born and where, growing up, he acquired his devout Christian beliefs.
There were sort of stories told about how the Almighty used to guide his business dealings. And if the Almighty said, this is something we ought to do, Arthur, he'd go and do it. And he often wouldn't do things unless the Almighty gave him the green light.
He was an enormous enabler of a lot of people to achieve amazing things. Some were commercial and some were charitable. But his ability to help people, he's just enabled a lot of people to do some very special things.
Enabling others to do good is a J. Arthur tradition that the Rank Foundation continues to this day. Minerva is one of over 20 projects in Hull currently supported by the foundation.
Minerva is a project from the Community Safety Partnership in Hull. It's charged with reducing repeat offending.
Minerva gives young people recently released from prison a chance to acquire new skills and somewhere to put them into practice.
I think Minerva, for the ex-offenders, it gives them that stimulation of it's like they can come in here and they can work, like all day and everything like that. I think if Minerva weren't here and there wasn't something there for them to do, it'd just be a case of, they just resort back. Most of them would just resort back to crime and end up back in prison.
Left unsupported, up to 70% of young people released from prison will simply end up back inside. But at Minerva, they have cut that reoffending rate to just 15% by giving young people a stake in their own future.
I think one of the biggest principles I would say that Rank give, whether they realise it or not, is that true support to allow entrepreneurs to flourish. Minerva is actually owned and managed by ex-offenders. It now employs 28 who run all of their own businesses from here. It's not for profit, so all of the income this generates is reinvested and it now is self-sufficient.
That's extraordinary. Minerva helps young people in trouble with the law get their lives back on track. Nurturing the young is a theme that runs through many of the charities funded by the foundation. From the inner city to the countryside, money from Rank helps young people across Britain achieve their true potential. On the other side of Hull, I went to see another Rank-funded charity that again puts young people at the heart of what it does.
Initially it started off as just spare land, and it was a group of residents, including myself, who had the idea of starting it as a community garden.
The Rainbow Garden welcomes everyone, especially young people in care.
I just choose to come every day because it's peaceful, there's different things to do, and the staff are lovely.
So it was beneficial to you and fun?
Yeah.
And just a nice rest from...
Yeah, from, like, being just peaceful, really.
Whatever the weather, Jeannie and her team keep the garden open all year.
We started 16 years ago, and community gardens were not really heard of. So we've learnt a lot ourselves through mistakes, really. But we've passed that experience on to other groups who want to set up similar. So we do offer a lot of advice. We have a great farm there.
Being outward-looking was one of the key factors that helped Jeannie secure funding from Rank.
For each individual charity, we look at their leadership qualities within that organisation, whether it's a volunteer-led organisation, a local community project or a national charity. And we look at what their strategy is as well, what their plans are for the future, how they can contribute back to the Rank network, if they get the Rank family concept that we have.
Part of the Rank family concept is to encourage self-starters like Jeannie and her team.
J. Arthur saw young people in particular, but community leaders, as the seed corn of the future and the leaders of tomorrow. And that's something that we very much adhere to when we look at projects, whether it's a large national charity or a local small one like the garden here in Hull.
What do you think J. Arthur would think looking at all these projects that exist today?
I think he would be very proud. I think that we work tirelessly to find those community leaders, and I think J. Arthur had that vision that at the local church, at the local youth club, those were the people that were going to change the world, and we seek out those people to change the world.
The area where I was brought up, it was quite an industrial area. So we was brought up in the shadow of Rank's Mills, funny enough. And I can't believe that me seeing something as a little girl, we've now ended up getting funding from them. So, I mean, they have left the city a marvellous legacy, I think.
It's a legacy that began in Hull, but now resonates right across Britain. The church where J. Arthur went as a young man was sadly destroyed in the war. However, the pews he prayed from were saved and brought to this nearby Methodist chapel. Sitting here, I'm able to strip down the whole picture and really get to the roots of what J. Arthur was all about. Because, of course, his whole film industry and indeed all the Rank charities perhaps all started sitting on this bench. I think for the first time I really understand that for J. Arthur this is what it was all about. From a small church in Hull, my great-grandfather moved onto the biggest possible platform from which to spread his Christian beliefs, the movies. 80 years later, the company he set up to produce religious films, funded by his Hollywood blockbusters, is thriving more than ever.
1 Corinthians chapter 13. If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal.
Today, CTVC is finding new audiences through new mediums, but the message is just the same.
All mysteries and all knowledge. And if I have a faith...
While J. Arthur's original films would have been seen by thousands, today millions are able to get the message.
Jesus' death on the cross was hugely difficult for the early Christians. It was extremely embarrassing to say that they were followers of a leader who had been crucified.
This is the sisters' cemetery. Well, that's where I'm going to be for eternity, I hope.
More than any other individual, Paul was responsible for transforming a fledgling Jesus movement from a minor sect of Judaism into a new religion that would one day become known as Christianity. The most extraordinary thing about CTVC is their generosity. I think this production company in particular is driven by passion, belief and heart. It's not always, I get the feeling, it's not always just driven by money and certainly not profit, because this is a production company with a charitable status, and that makes it very different.
CTVC also connects to school children up and down the country. It's taken the spirit of J. Arthur's Sunday school teachings and turned it into a resource called TrueTube.
TrueTube is a website that has loads and loads and loads of video clips on it of all kind of current issues. Okay, so it looks at religion, it looks at ethics, community identity, diversity, all those sorts of things.
One person change the world? No.
Absolutely not.
I think TrueTube's brilliant. It provides a stimulus for students. So by just putting on a couple of minute video clip, it's a really good starting point for lessons.
We pay taxes, but the taxes money doesn't just get wasted. It goes to hospitals.
So just by working and contributing to society, everybody's making a difference.
The TrueTube website now reaches over 1 million school children a year. The Rank Foundation has also made a difference to budding filmmaker Asim Ali. He's one of thousands of young people who've been given a paid internship through the Time to Shine scheme.
Oh, it was brilliant. Like, I mean, if I didn't get that, I would have sort of given up. Like, I wouldn't have tried to go in media anymore. So yeah, no, it was brilliant. Like, you know, it just not only did it give me opportunity, it gave me loads of training. It boosted my confidence so much as well. I mean, I got to come to London as well, like, you know, capital city of England, like, something, you know, brilliant. So yeah, no, I absolutely loved it. Like, it's just, yeah, it's been class.
CTVC makes expert use of all the latest technological innovations. My great-grandfather would have thoroughly approved. He really embraced new technology and pushed it to the limit.
He was one of the first people to travel more than 60 miles an hour in a motor car. He was one of the first people who was a passenger in an aeroplane flight in the days when they were made of string and brown paper. He had an enormous interest in the advancement of science, particularly how that advancement of science could benefit people.
He wasn't frightened of innovation, and he started with film and then television, and now with CTVC we've gone on to the internet and mobile telephones and other forms of distribution.
Since J. Arthur's time, technology and society have changed almost beyond recognition. Yet the basic things he stood for have remained unaltered. It's the end of my journey, and I've travelled back here to the Rose Garden where J. Arthur's ashes are scattered. One of the most telling stories about my great-grandfather revolves around something my father did when he was just 8 years old. He was up in Scotland staying with J. Arthur in his house, and he went into the bathroom and carved his initials onto the wall. A few hours later, he was called into J. Arthur's study. But instead of telling him off, J. Arthur just turned around and said, "Don't carve your name in dark and gloomy places. Carve your name outside for all the world to see."